The year was 2347, and the stars had never felt so cold. Ambassador Daniel Harris stood at the entrance of the Great Assembly Hall on Verith Prime, a crystalline world that sparkled like a frozen tear against the black canvas of space. He took a deep breath, adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform, stepped forward into history. The hall stretched before him like a cathedral built by giants. Pillars of living crystal rose hundreds of meters into the air, their surfaces pulsing with soft blue light. 12 elevated platforms circled the central speaking floor, each one occupied by representatives of the galaxy's most ancient and powerful species. They had ruled this corner of the universe for 50,000 years. Humanity had barely left its own solar system 3 centuries ago. Daniel walked to the center of the floor, his footsteps echoing in the vast silence. He could feel their eyes upon him, dozens of alien gazes studying him like scientists examining a new specimen. Some looked curious. Most looked bored. A few looked openly hostile. The Valorian High Chancellor occupied the highest platform, his serpentine body coiled around a throne of black crystal. His scales shimmered like liquid mercury, shifting colors with each subtle movement. When he spoke, his voice filled the chamber like thunder rolling across mountains. "The Galactic Concord recognizes the human delegation," the Chancellor announced. "You may speak, Ambassador Harris. Though I confess, we are all quite curious what a species so young could possibly have to say to those of us who walked among the stars when your ancestors still lived in caves." Laughter rippled through the assembly. The Kathrani delegate, a massive insectoid creature standing nearly 4 meters tall, clicked his mandibles in amusement. His compound eyes glittered with predatory intelligence. The graceful Sylvari ambassador covered her luminescent face with slender fingers, hiding what might have been a smile. Even the Ordani beings of living stone, who rarely showed any emotion, rumbled with what passed for humor among their kind. Daniel waited for the laughter to fade. He had expected this. Admiral Crawford had warned him about the arrogance of the elder races. They had conquered worlds, shattered empires, and outlived civilizations beyond counting. To them, humanity was nothing more than a curious novelty, a brief spark that would burn out and be forgotten. "Honored members of the Galactic Concord," Daniel began, his voice calm and steady, "I come before you today not to boast of human achievements or to beg for your acceptance. I come to deliver a message from the people of Earth, a message of peace and a message of warning." The Kathrani delegate leaned forward, his antennae twitching with interest. "A warning? From humans? How delightfully amusing. Please, continue. Tell us what we should fear from your tiny fleet of primitive vessels." Daniel ignored the mockery. "Humanity desires peace above all things. We wish to trade with your worlds, to learn from your wisdom, and to grow alongside you as partners in exploration and discovery. We have no interest in conquest or war. We have seen enough bloodshed in our own history to know that violence brings only suffering." He paused, letting his words settle over the assembly. "However," he continued, "I must make something very clear. The ships we have shown you, the weapons we have demonstrated, the technology we have shared, these represent only a fraction of our true capabilities. Humanity has been holding back. We have kept our greatest achievements hidden, locked away in vaults and secret facilities, because we hoped we would never need them." The laughter returned, louder this time. The Valorian Chancellor's eyes narrowed with amusement. "You expect us to believe that your species, barely 1,000 years removed from burning witches and fighting with sharpened metal, possesses secret technology that could rival our own? The Valorian Empire has existed for 12,000 years. We have weapons that can crack moons and ships that can cross the galaxy in days. What could you possibly have that would concern us?" Daniel met the Chancellor's gaze without flinching. "I hope you never have to find out, Chancellor. I truly do. Because if any species, any power in this galaxy threatens Earth or her colonies, they will learn why every predator on our homeworld eventually learned to fear humanity. They will discover what happens when we stop holding back." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then the Kathrani delegate threw back his massive head and released a sound like grinding metal, the equivalent of uproarious laughter in his species. "Oh, this is wonderful. The little humans think they can frighten us with empty threats. Perhaps we should give them a demonstration of real power, just to educate them about their proper place in the cosmic order. High above the planet's surface, Admiral Lisa Crawford watched the proceedings through a secure holographic display aboard the USS Sentinel. She had commanded Earth's defensive fleet for 15 years, and she knew every secret humanity kept hidden from the galaxy. The Pandora Protocols, the Omega Arrays, the nightmare weapons buried beneath the ice of Europa, sleeping and waiting. Her executive officer, Commander Kevin Parks, stood beside her, his face grim. "They are not taking us seriously, Admiral." The Kathrani seemed particularly hostile. Lisa nodded slowly. "We knew they would not believe us. The elder races have ruled unchallenged for too long. They cannot imagine a universe where humanity poses any threat to their dominance. Do you think they will test us?" Lisa turned away from the display, her eyes hard. "I hope not, Kevin. I truly hope not. Because if they do, if they force our hand, we will have to show them everything. And once they see what we are capable of, there will be no going back. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again." Back in the assembly hall, Daniel concluded his address. He thanked the Concord for their time, reiterated humanity's desire for peaceful coexistence, and formally requested membership in the galactic community. The vote was held immediately. Humanity was granted provisional membership, the lowest status possible, with limited rights and no voice in Concord decisions. As Daniel walked back toward the transport that would return him to his ship, a Kathrani delegate intercepted him. The massive insectoid loomed over the human ambassador, mandibles clicking softly. "I want you to understand something, little human," the Kathrani said, his voice a low growl. "My empire has conquered hundreds of worlds. We have exterminated species that dared to challenge our supremacy. Your threats mean nothing to us. Your secrets, if they even exist, will not save you. If we decide that humanity is a problem, we will solve that problem in the way we have always solved problems, quickly and permanently." Daniel looked up at the towering alien without fear. "I hope you remember this conversation, Delegate. I hope you remember that we tried to warn you. Because if your empire makes the mistake of threatening my people, you will learn the true meaning of regret." The Kathrani laughed again and walked away. Dismissing the human from his thoughts, Daniel returned to the Sentinel and delivered his report to Admiral Crawford. She listened in silence, then looked out the viewport at the stars stretching endlessly into the void. "They did not listen," she said quietly. "We gave them every chance, and they did not listen, Admiral. They did not." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with renewed resolve. "Then we prepare. We hope for the best, but we prepare for the worst. And if the worst comes, we will show the galaxy exactly what humanity is capable of when we stop being kind." The Sentinel turned away from Varith Prime and began its long journey home, carrying with it the weight of a warning that had fallen on deaf ears and the shadow of a storm that was already gathering on the horizon. 6 months had passed since the meeting at Varith Prime, and humanity had settled into a quiet routine of building, exploring, and growing. The colonies along the outer rim flourished, their populations swelling with families seeking new lives among the stars. New Montana, New Oregon, and Prosperity were the 3 largest settlements, home to nearly 50,000 souls combined. They were farmers, engineers, teachers, and dreamers. Ordinary people building extraordinary futures on distant worlds. Captain Nathan Cole of the research vessel Horizon was charting an asteroid field near the Kepler expanse when the distress signal reached him. It came from New Montana, a burst of static and screaming that cut through the silence of space like a knife. Nathan felt his blood turn to ice as he listened to the fragmentary transmission. Explosions, weapons fire, children crying, and then nothing but silence. He ordered his crew to set course immediately, pushing the Horizon's engines beyond their safety limits. The journey took 11 hours. 11 hours of hoping, praying, dreading what they would find when they arrived. What they found was death. New Montana had been a thriving colony of 17. Now it was a graveyard. The settlement's domes had been cracked open like eggs, Their contents spilled across the barren surface of the planet. Buildings lay in ruins, their walls scorched black by weapons fire. Bodies littered the streets, frozen in the vacuum, their faces twisted in expressions of terror and pain. Nathan walked through the wreckage in a daze, his environmental suit protecting him from the cold while doing nothing to shield him from the horror. Dr. Amy Lawson, his chief science officer, walked beside him, her voice trembling as she documented everything they saw. She had served on research vessels for 20 years. She had seen accidents, natural disasters, and the aftermath of pirate attacks. Nothing had prepared her for this. They found the schoolhouse near the center of the colony. It had been a beautiful building once, with colorful murals painted on its walls, and a playground filled with swings and slides. Now it was a tomb. The children had been gathered there when the attack began, their teachers trying to protect them from the violence outside. It had not been enough. Nothing could have been enough. Amy knelt beside the ruins and wept. Nathan stood behind her, his hands clenched into fists, his heart filled with a rage so pure and cold that it frightened him. This had not been a battle. This had not been a military operation. This had been slaughter. The Kathrani had come not to conquer but to kill, to send a message written in the blood of innocence. The other two colonies, New Oregon and Prosperity, had suffered the same fate. The attacks had been coordinated, striking all three worlds within the same 24-hour period. 31,000 human beings had been murdered, and the Kathrani had not even bothered to hide their responsibility. Their ships had been clearly identified, their energy signatures unmistakable. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People gathered in the streets, in their homes, in houses of worship, united by grief and fury. The images from the colonies played on every screen, the faces of the dead burned into the collective memory of the human race. Parents held their children tighter. Soldiers stood at attention with tears in their eyes. The world that had known centuries of peace remembered what it felt like to want war. President Laura Bennett addressed the United Nations Council in an emergency session. She was a calm woman by nature, known for her patience and diplomatic skill. But when she spoke that day, there was steel in her voice and fire in her eyes. "The Kathrani Empire has committed an act of genocide against our people," she said, her words carrying the weight of human history behind them. 31,000 of our brothers and sisters, our friends and neighbors, our children, have been murdered in cold blood. We reached out to the Galactic Concord for justice. They refused to intervene. They told us that the Kathrani are too valuable as military partners. They told us that human lives are not worth the trouble of confrontation. She paused, letting the silence speak for itself. We warned them. Ambassador Harris stood before their assembly and told them exactly what would happen if they threatened our people. They laughed at us. They dismissed us as primitives, playing at being a starfaring civilization. The Kathrani told our ambassador that they would solve the problem of humanity quickly and permanently. They have made their intentions clear. They believe we are prey, nothing more. General Chris Martinez stepped forward to present the military assessment. He had spent 40 years in uniform, rising through the ranks on merit and dedication. He had hoped to retire without ever having to command forces in a full-scale war. That hope had died with the colonists of New Montana. The Kathrani fleet numbers over 10,000 warships, he explained, holographic displays showing the enemy's strength. Their empire spans 200 star systems. They have subjugated dozens of species and have never lost a major military engagement. By conventional metrics, they outmatch our revealed forces 3-1. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Some had already begun discussing surrender, negotiation, anything to avoid a war they believed humanity could not win. President Bennett raised her hand for silence. General Martinez, you said conventional metrics? What about unconventional ones? The general smiled for the first time since the attacks began. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a predator that had been pretending to be prey. The Kathrani have made their calculations based on what we have shown the galaxy, he said. They do not know about the Pandora protocols. They do not know about the Omega Fleet. They do not know about the weapons we have kept, hidden since the founding of the United Earth Government. If we stop holding back, Madam President. We will show them why every dangerous creature on our homeworld eventually learned to fear the thing that walked on two legs and used tools. President Bennett looked around the council chamber. Meeting the eyes of every representative, I am asking for authorization to activate the Pandora protocols. I am asking for permission to show the galaxy what happens when humanity is pushed too far. This is not a decision I make lightly. Once we reveal what we have hidden, there will be no going back. The universe will know what we are capable of, but I will not allow the murder of our children to go unanswered. I will not allow our people to live in fear of predators who see us as nothing more than meat. The vote was unanimous. Every single representative raised their hand in favor. At midnight, Greenwich Mean Time, the Pandora protocols were authorized. Across human space, in hidden facilities beneath frozen moons, and inside hollowed-out asteroids, sealed vaults began to open. Machines that had slept for centuries hummed to life. Ships that had never seen the light of distant suns prepared for their first flight. Admiral Lisa Crawford received the orders aboard the Sentinel. She read them twice, then looked at Commander Kevin Park with an expression of grim determination. "It is time," she said quietly. "God help us all, but it is time." The galaxy had drawn first blood. Now it would learn the price of that choice. The sleeping giant had been awakened. Its anger would shake the stars themselves. Deep beneath the frozen surface of Europa, in a facility that did not officially exist, Dr. Ben Porter stood before the greatest achievement in human history. He was a thin man with gray hair and tired eyes, a theoretical physicist who had spent his entire career working on equations that most people could not even begin to understand. For 30 years he had labored in obscurity, refining calculations that seemed impossible, dreaming of technologies that should not exist. Now, for the first time, he would see those dreams become reality. The Cascade engine filled the massive underground chamber, a sphere of crystalline alloys and exotic matter that pulsed with soft blue light. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, a machine that could fold the fabric of space itself like a piece of paper. With this technology, a ship could cross the entire galaxy in hours instead of months. Distance would become meaningless. The stars would be within easy reach. The facility director, Colonel Sandra West, stood beside him, her face illuminated by the engine's glow. She had commanded this secret installation for 15 years, overseeing the work of thousands of scientists and engineers who had devoted their lives to projects the rest of humanity knew nothing about. "Is it ready?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ben nodded slowly. "We have run every simulation 1,000 times. The mathematics are sound. The engineering is flawless. It will work. You sound uncertain." He turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting the blue light of the engine. "I am not uncertain about the science, Colonel. I am uncertain about what comes next. Once we use this technology, once we show the galaxy what we can do, everything changes. We will no longer be the harmless newcomers they can ignore. We will be something else entirely. Something they will fear." Sandra placed a hand on his shoulder. "They killed our children, Doctor. They murdered 31,000 innocent people and laughed about it. Whatever we become after today, we become it because they left us no choice." The activation sequence began. The Cascade engine hummed louder, its crystalline surface beginning to spin. Reality itself seemed to bend around the device, space twisting and folding in ways that hurt the eyes to watch. And then, with a flash of light that momentarily blinded everyone in the chamber, the engine completed its first successful test. A probe the size of a basketball vanished from Europa and reappeared 3 seconds later in orbit around Neptune. A journey that would have taken conventional ships weeks to complete. Ben stared at the data streaming across his displays, tears running down his cheeks. "It works," he whispered. "My God, it actually works." Across human space, similar scenes were unfolding. On Mars, Admiral Lisa Crawford personally oversaw the launch of the Omega fleet from secret construction facilities hidden within the planet's vast canyon systems. These were not the ships humanity had shown to the Galactic Concord. These vessels had been built in absolute secrecy, their designs based on technologies that the elder races would have considered impossible. The USS Vanguard led the formation. A dreadnought 3 kilometers long, with a hull of adaptive armor that could absorb and redirect energy weapons. Its weapon systems included directed energy projectors capable of cracking a planet's crust, nanite swarms that could consume an enemy fleet from the inside out, and temporal disruptors that could age a ship and its crew to dust in the span of a heartbeat. There were 12 ships in the Omega fleet, each one a masterpiece of destruction, each one carrying enough firepower to end a civilization. Lieutenant Commander Megan Torres sat at the tactical station of the Vanguard, running final diagnostics on weapon systems that had never been tested in actual combat. She was young for her rank, barely 30 years old, but she had trained for this moment since the day she entered the academy. Her instructors had told her about the secret fleet. They had explained what it was designed to do. She had hoped she would never have to use that knowledge. Commander Kevin Park walked onto the bridge and took his station beside Admiral Crawford. He had served as her executive officer for 10 years, and he knew her moods better than anyone. Right now, she was calm, focused, and absolutely determined. It was the most dangerous version of Lisa Crawford that existed. "All ships report, ready for cascade jump," Kevin announced. "The fleet is at full combat readiness. Weapons are armed. Shields are at maximum. We are awaiting your orders, Admiral." Lisa looked at the main view screen, which displayed a tactical map of Kathrani's space. Their homeworld, Kethos Prime, sat at the center of their empire like a spider at the heart of its web. The planet had never known invasion. For 12,000 years, the Kathrani had been the hunters, never the hunted. That was about to change. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. Every crew member on every ship stopped what they were doing to listen. Her voice was steady, clear, and filled with quiet fury. "I will not give you a long speech," she began. "You all know why we are here. You have all seen the images from New Montana, New Oregon, and Prosperity. You have all looked upon the faces of our dead, children, teachers, farmers, families, who wanted nothing more than to build new lives among the stars. They were not soldiers. They were not threats. They were innocents, and they were slaughtered like animals by an empire that considers us prey." She paused, letting her words settle into the hearts of her crew. "Today, we show the Kathrani that they were wrong. Today, we show the entire galaxy what happens when humanity stops pretending to be weak. We did not start this war. We did not want this war. But we will finish it. We will finish it so completely, so decisively, that no species will ever again consider attacking our people. This is not about revenge. This is about survival. This is about making certain that our children can grow up in a galaxy that respects their right to exist." She straightened in her command chair, her eyes hard as diamonds. "All ships, prepare for cascade jump. Target coordinates are locked. When we emerge, we will be directly above Kethos Prime. We will bypass their outer defenses, their patrol fleets, their early warning systems. We will appear in their skies without warning, and we will show them the face of human wrath. May God forgive us for what we are about to do, because I am not certain we will ever forgive ourselves." The Cascade engines engaged simultaneously across all 12 ships of the Omega fleet, space folded around them. Reality bending and twisting as the most advanced technology humanity had ever created tore a hole through the fabric of the universe itself. The ships vanished from Mars' orbit in a flash of distorted light, crossing 3,000 light-years in the time it took to draw a single breath in the silent depths of space. The Kathrani went about their daily routines. Confident in their superiority, secure in their power, they had no idea that judgment was coming. They had no concept of the storm that was about to break upon their world. The predators were about to learn what it meant to become prey. The hunters were about to discover what it felt like to be hunted. And the galaxy was about to witness the terrible beauty of human vengeance unleashed without mercy or restraint. The Omega fleet emerged from Cascade space above Kethos Prime, weapons armed and ready. The reckoning had begun. The Kathrani homeworld of Kethos Prime had never known invasion. For 12,000 years, their species had spread across the stars like a plague, conquering and consuming everything in their path. They had shattered empires, exterminated species, and built their civilization on the bones of countless victims. Their orbital defense grid was considered the most powerful in the galaxy, a network of weapons platforms and fortress stations that could destroy entire fleets before they came within weapons range. No enemy had ever penetrated those defenses. No enemy had ever even tried. It lasted exactly 47 seconds. The Omega fleet emerged from Cascade space directly above the planet's northern hemisphere, appearing out of nowhere like ghosts materializing from thin air. The Kathrani defense grid detected them instantly, but the commanders in charge of those weapons could not process what they were seeing. Enemy ships did not simply appear in the heart of defended space. It was impossible. It violated every principle of warfare they understood. That moment of confusion cost them everything, Commander. Ryan Scott led the first assault wave from the bridge of the stealth frigate Shadow Strike. His squadron of 6 vessels had been designed specifically for this type of operation. Ships so advanced that they could slip past any sensor grid and strike without warning. They crossed the final distance to the orbital defense platforms in seconds, their weapons already firing before the Kathrani could raise their shields. The planetary shield generators died in a cascade of explosions, their massive structures crumbling as directed energy beams cut through them like hot knives through butter. Without those shields, Kethos Prime was naked before the human fleet. Without those shields, there was nothing to stop what came next. Admiral Lisa Crawford watched from the bridge of the Vanguard as the Omega arrays came online. These weapons had been hidden in the debris fields of a dozen dead star systems, dormant satellites waiting for the signal that would wake them from their long sleep. They synchronized their fire across thousands of light years, channeling their energy through a network of relay stations until it converged on a single point above Kethos Prime. The beam that struck the Kathrani Grand Fleet was brighter than a star. It cut through their formation like a sword through silk, vaporizing warships by the dozens. The proudest vessels in their navy, ships that had conquered worlds and crushed rebellions, became expanding clouds of superheated metal in the blink of an eye. 1,700 warships had assembled to defend their homeworld. Within an hour, fewer than 100 remained, and those survivors were fleeing toward the outer system in desperate retreat. High Chancellor Rex of the Kathrani stood in his palace throne room, watching his world burn through windows of reinforced crystal. He had ruled his empire for 3 centuries, commanding the mightiest military force the galaxy had ever known. He had personally ordered the attack on the human colonies, confident that the primitive newcomers would cower in fear and accept their place as prey. He had laughed when his commanders reported the slaughter. Pleased that his message had been delivered so effectively, he was not laughing now. His military advisors crowded around him, their mandibles clicking in panic as they tried to explain what was happening. The humans had technology that should not exist. Their weapons were beyond anything the Kathrani had ever encountered. Their ships moved through space in ways that violated the known laws of physics. Everything the Empire had believed about human capabilities had been catastrophically wrong. How is this possible? Rex demanded, his voice shaking with something he had never felt before. Fear. True, genuine fear. They were primitives. They had nothing. Our intelligence confirmed they had nothing. The intelligence was wrong, High Chancellor, one advisor replied, his voice trembling. The humans were hiding their true capabilities. They deceived us. They deceived everyone. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Lieutenant Commander Megan Torres coordinated the final phase of the assault. The Kathrani ground defenses were formidable. Massive weapons platforms that could shoot down anything that entered the atmosphere. But the nanite swarms changed everything. Microscopic machines, billions upon billions of them, descended upon those defenses like an invisible plague. They ate through armor, consumed circuitry, and reduced the mightiest fortifications to dust in minutes. The Kathrani soldiers, watching those defenses crumble, understood then that they were facing something beyond their comprehension. This was not war as they knew it. This was annihilation. This was the end of everything they had believed about their place in the universe, Admiral. Crawford opened a communication channel to the planet below. Her face appeared on every screen, every display. every communication device on Kethos Prime. Billions of Kethrani citizens stopped what they were doing to watch and listen. They saw a human woman with gray hair and cold eyes, and they saw something in those eyes that made their blood run cold. She did not threaten. She did not boast. She did not deliver speeches about justice or vengeance. She simply displayed a live feed from the human colonies, images of the devastation the Kethrani had caused. The broken domes, the burned buildings, the bodies of children lying in the streets. "You were warned," she said, her voice carrying the weight of human grief and rage. "Ambassador Harris stood before your galactic concord and told you exactly what would happen if you threatened our people. You chose not to listen. You chose to believe that we were prey. You chose to murder our children." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes boring into the visual pickup. "Now you will learn. Now you will understand what humanity is truly capable of when we stop holding back. We do not wish to exterminate your species. We are not monsters, despite what you may believe. But we will have justice. We will have guarantees that this will never happen again. And we will have them today, or we will reduce your civilization to ash and let the galaxy remember the Kethrani as a cautionary tale." The High Council of the Kethrani Empire convened an emergency session. The debate was brief and one-sided. Those who argued for continued resistance were silenced. Why the simple reality of their situation? The human fleet hung above their world like the hammer of an angry god, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. High Chancellor Vrex personally transmitted the surrender message. His voice cracked as he spoke the words, humiliation burning in his hearts. The Kethrani Empire, unconquered for 12,000 years, yielded to a species they had dismissed as insignificant primitives less than a year ago. The terms of surrender were absolute. Massive reparations to rebuild the human colonies. Complete military oversight by human observers. Reduction of their fleet to defensive vessels only. Public acknowledgement of their crimes against humanity. And a formal apology broadcast to every world in the Galactic Concord, admitting that they had underestimated humanity and paid the price for their arrogance. Admiral Crawford accepted the surrender with no joy in her heart. She had done what was necessary. She had protected her people and ensured that this would never happen again. But she had also unleashed destruction on a scale that troubled her conscience. The Kethrani military was gone, their empire humbled, their pride shattered. It had been necessary, but it had not been pleasant. She ordered the fleet to stand down and opened a channel to Earth. President Bennett's face appeared on screen, exhausted but relieved. "It is done, Madam President," Lisa reported. "The Kethrani have surrendered unconditionally. They will accept our terms. The war is over." Bennett closed her eyes for a moment, offering what might have been a prayer of thanks. "Casualties. None on our side. We did not lose a single ship or a single crew member. The Kethrani lost their entire Grand Fleet and most of their orbital infrastructure. Their civilian population was not targeted. We are not them." "No," Bennett agreed quietly. "We are not. Bring our people home, Admiral. You have done your duty. Now, let us build the peace that our fallen deserve." The Omega fleet began its journey back to human space, leaving behind a broken empire and a galaxy that would never again underestimate the children of Earth. The Galactic Concord convened an emergency session for the first time in 3,000 years. The crystalline halls of Verith Prime, which had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, now played host to the most significant gathering in living memory. Representatives from all 12 elder species had assembled, their usual arrogance replaced by something none of them had felt in millennia. Uncertainty, perhaps even fear. Ambassador Daniel Harris walked to the center of the assembly floor, the same spot where he had stood just over a year ago. Back then, they had laughed at his warnings. Back then, they had dismissed humanity as a curiosity, a brief spark that would soon fade. Now, they watched him with very different eyes. The Valorian High Chancellor no longer looked down at him with contempt. The Serpentine ruler's scales had lost some of their luster, and his ancient eyes held something that might have been respect, The Kathrani delegation was notably smaller than before. Their new representative, a young officer who had been chosen specifically because he had opposed the attacks on humanity, the Sylvari ambassador, did not hide smiles behind elegant fingers. The Ordani had gone completely still, their stone forms betraying what might have been nervousness. Daniel did not speak of the war. He did not mention the 1,700 Kathrani warships that had been reduced to debris. He did not describe the technology that had allowed humanity to cross 3,000 light-years in seconds. Instead, he spoke of the future. Honored members of the Galactic Concord, he began, his voice calm and steady. I come before you today not as a conqueror, but as a partner. Humanity has proven that we are capable of defending ourselves against any threat. We have demonstrated that the warnings we gave were not empty boasts. But we did not reveal our true strength because we desired war. We revealed it because we had no other choice. He paused, letting his words settle over the assembly. We do not wish to rule the galaxy. We have no interest in conquest or domination. The universe is vast beyond imagining, filled with wonders we have barely begun to explore. There is room enough for all of us to grow, to learn, to build something greater than any single species could achieve alone. That is what humanity desires: partnership, cooperation, mutual respect, and mutual protection. The Sylvari ambassador rose from her seat, her luminescent skin glowing softly in the chamber's light. Ambassador Harris, your species has demonstrated capabilities that far exceed anything we believed possible. How can we trust that you will not use these capabilities against us? How can we be certain that humanity will not become the very thing you fought against? Daniel nodded, accepting the question as fair and reasonable. You cannot be certain, Ambassador. Just as we could not be certain that the Kathroni would not attack our colonies. Trust must be earned through actions, not words. We will earn your trust by keeping our promises, by respecting our agreements, and by never using our strength against those who have done us no harm. But I must be clear about one thing. His expression hardened slightly. We will never again allow ourselves to be seen as weak. We will never again permit our children to be slaughtered while ancient powers look away. Any species that threatens human lives will face the full weight of human retribution. This is not a threat. It is simply a statement of fact. Humanity has learned from this experience. We have learned that mercy without strength is an invitation to destruction. We will be merciful, but we will never again be helpless. The vote was held after 3 days of deliberation. Humanity was granted permanent membership in the Galactic Concord with full voting rights, the first species to achieve such status in 10,000 years. More importantly, new protocols were established for the protection of all member species. Never again would the Concord stand idle while one of its members slaughtered the civilians of another. Never again would military partnerships trump basic morality. Admiral Lisa Crawford, retired from active service 6 months after the war ended. She had given 40 years of her life to protecting humanity, and she was tired in ways that sleep could not cure. She settled on a small farm in Montana, the same region of Earth where her ancestors had lived for generations. The land was green and peaceful, the skies blue and open, and the silence was exactly what she needed. Her grandchildren visited often, running through the fields and playing games that children had played for centuries. Sometimes they asked her about the war, about the things she had done among the stars. She would smile and tell them stories that left out the darkness, stories about bravery and sacrifice, and the importance of standing up for what was right. She never told them about the nightmares. She never mentioned the faces of the Kathrani who had died in the destruction she had ordered. Those memories were hers to carry. Burdens that came with command and could not be shared. Dr. Amy Lawson led the reconstruction efforts on New Montana. The colony was rebuilt from the ground up, its new domes stronger and more beautiful than the originals. A memorial wall was constructed at the center of the settlement, a massive structure of black marble that bore the names of every victim. 17,000 names etched into the stone so that they would never be forgotten. People came from across human space to visit the memorial, to pay their respects, to remember. Parents brought their children and told them stories about the people who had died. Teachers brought their students and explained why the sacrifice of those colonists mattered. Veterans of the war stood before the wall in silence, offering salutes to fallen friends. Amy spent her remaining years on New Montana, watching the colony grow and prosper. She trained a new generation of scientists, passing on her knowledge and her passion for discovery. When she finally passed away at the age of 93, she was buried in a garden beside the memorial, exactly where she had asked to rest. Captain Nathan Cole never stopped exploring. His ship, the Horizon, became legendary among human explorers, its crew venturing further into the unknown than anyone before them. They discovered new worlds, made contact with new species, mapped regions of space that no one had ever seen. His crew changed over the years. New faces replaced old ones. But the spirit of the Horizon remained constant, a blend of curiosity and courage that defined the best of humanity. At one point, he even accepted a Kathrani officer onto his crew, a young soldier named Threx, who sought to atone for his people's crimes through service to humanity. Threx proved himself brave and loyal. Nathan eventually came to consider him a trusted friend, and in the halls of the Galactic Concord, among the elder races who had ruled the stars for millennia, a new saying emerged. It was passed from mentor to student, from parent to child, from generation to generation. It became part of the wisdom that every young diplomat, every military officer, every ruler was expected to learn. Never mistake human kindness for weakness. Never test human patience. And never, ever harm a human child. The galaxy had learned its lesson. It had learned that the soft-spoken newcomers from a small blue world were not prey to be hunted. It had learned that behind their smiles and their offers of friendship lay a capacity for destruction that could humble the mightiest empires. It had learned that humanity would go to any lengths to protect its own. But it had also learned something else, something more important. It had learned that